following the CQC's review of all the GP surgeries in Southwark, and what role the council can play in ensuring that we have GP surgeries that are fit for purpose, and that are delivering for our residents. A large number of our races inadequate or requiring improvement in some way. And obviously we need to take a look as a council at how we can help support those surgeries and where we need to build new ones going forward, and what role is there for the Health and Wellbeing Board to help support that work.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, Chair, because it is, an unacceptably high number of surgeries in the borough are now in that category and causing concern. And we do raise it with the CCG colleagues. I think it's something that they feel is within their purview, and that we haven't got too much to offer, and they're kind of putting their house in order. But I think we know from our own experience that team working and partnership working can help sometimes in these situations. And it's obviously a concern for patients. And you're right, it was a regular member of the public who wrote to me to raise this as a concern, and I think wrote to you also to see what could be done. My own GP surgery, I think, has been rated inadequate. So, it's something that does impact all of us. And we know that, sometimes it can be things which are quite minor and modest to sort out that need to be changed to be put right. But I suppose our message to CCG is, we see the problem that you're facing, and anything that we can do to help take this forward and help you to resolve these issues, because it's in all of our interests, we will do, and that offer stands. And I suppose probably I need, as Chair of CCG, to write to make that absolutely, HWE to write to the Chair of CCG to make that absolutely clear. We've had conversations about it, but I think it'd be right to reduce that to writing now. Richard might be able to help you more, kind of in terms of what those conversations might be, or David in due course.
Okay. Move on to other questions. Anybody? No questions.
No. I've got a question.
Go on, David.
So I guess I want to pick up on perhaps on social regeneration. Obviously, It's something that we took a report on at Health and Wellbeing, and obviously we're a borough where there's a lot of regeneration going on, and obviously you'll be familiar with some of the concerns of some residents in regards to the way that regeneration is done in Southwark. In regards to the sort of I don't know, I think it's being called a framework around social regeneration. How do you see success as working in regards to social regeneration? I mean, what are the indicators that you would want to see in regards to social regeneration in this borough?
I think it's about. It's all about. It's about life in a way, David. But it's about improved health outcomes for our residents. It's about improved job and employment outcomes for our residents. It's about improved, happiness, if that can be measured, and it's about improved physical facilities for all people to take advantage. I think it's also about communities which are content with what's happening in the borough and feeling the benefits. It's all very well us politicians telling people what the benefits are, but unless they're feeling them, then they don't believe that. And I think the job of social regeneration is to help take people on the journey and explain the journey and make obvious sometimes those benefits which are not so obvious. There's a clear financial benefit which we've referred to a few times recently, but over the last 8 years the council's benefited to the tune of I think 360 million, it might be 390 million, but I'll use the lower figure, 360 million, which has gone into our accounts effectively because of regeneration in the borough, either through increased council tax, business rates, or capital contributions. And that has meant that we've been able to keep some of our essential services running at a level which we would not have been if we'd not been a borough where regeneration was happening. So that's a very physical manifestation of it. But I think the challenge, and one of the exciting bits of work I think about what we're doing on the Old Kent Road with guys at St Thomas's Trust is almost a baseline figure of where people's health is, because we know there are massive health inequalities in our borough, and to see those health inequalities broken down would be, I think, the real achievement. Now, it's not going to be something you can measure in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, but over time, and that's something that would be good. Mental health, also in terms of improvement in people's quality of life, etc. I think these are important indicators of the success of change in a borough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you think on things though? This is slightly straying, but on things like the idea of having this discussion about having ballots before regeneration schemes take place on estates, etc., and making sure that we have the support of people, their sort of engagement in regards to planning, and perhaps also making sure that when we do regeneration, that it's seen to deliver, I guess, against the things that local residents want to see delivered. So, for example, I can think of a couple of constituents who keep emailing me about, which we'll probably come on to later, but it's about new health provision facilities at the Elephant and Borough and Bankside. And obviously we've got some major regeneration schemes in at the Elephant, and yet there's still no provision of new health facilities. So I wonder sometimes, that the reason we're not getting the full support of residents is because perhaps they don't perceive the benefits. You've obviously described some clear benefits about jobs and investment, etc. But maybe we're not really delivering what the residents would like to see from the regeneration, and maybe we could do better on that.
Well, which I think is the point of this other conversation, which we conducted, to kind of properly check: are we doing what people are expecting and wanting from us? There will always be some people who will not want to, see any change in their area, and that's quite difficult and challenging in our part of central London, where the pressure for change is so great. On health facilities, on the council's part, I would say that's not for the want of trying. And we try and engage the CCG colleagues and health colleagues in those debates, and you will know, as well as I do, David, that kind of agreements have been reached about where health facilities should be in major regeneration projects, and then and it's not confined to Southwark, I have to say. They're delivered, we deliver those spaces, and then the CCG says, in whatever area, be it Southwark or anywhere else, we don't have the funding or finance to deliver that for you now, despite the fact that there'll be an increasing population which we believe would justify it. So I think it's about taking people on the journey. I think people do have to have that sense of ownership of what's going on around them, which is an important part. So lots of work still to do. You've got to keep telling the story of why you're doing something, and what the benefits are, and keep explaining it. And it can be very tiring. It can be very soul destroying at times, can't it? Because you keep going around saying the same thing, but actually, it's worthwhile, because I do think the message does get through eventually. And if it's not, if you're getting something wrong, then people will tell you and you try to do it.
Okay.
Helen?
Thank you. I've got 2 questions. One which is quite a big picture question, which is about the STP. And I just wondered if you could outline the current council's approach to engagement or not with the STP, just so we know where that conversation has got to, and within that conversation, any risks that you've identified for us, and maybe any opportunities, possibly, around that. And then the second question is a bit more specific. One of the things that was coming out of the mental health strategy was around social prescribing, and opportunities for increasing social prescribing. There's a conversation about the extent to which that works, and kind of can actually deliver outcomes and value for money and all the rest of it. And I didn't know whether that was something which had been looked at all by the Joint Health and Wellbeing Board, or could potentially be on the agenda in the future, because I think it comes up in lots of conversations, but it would be really helpful to establish the good practice and the evidence base around that.
Okay, on the second one, I don't think we have looked at it as a Health and Wellbeing Board, so David's nodding, Richard's not sure. So there's not a consensus as to whether we have. I don't believe we have consensus.
I think the integrated planning and delivery group will work. Perhaps creates a space where we can have that conversation more effectively.
And on the first part of the question, or first question, Helen, it's kind of been quite a hands-off approach that we've taken to the SDP. certainly over the last 12 months. And it's more, I suppose we've received quite brief updates and reports from health colleagues on the progress that's been made. I think the more important, in terms of the more important piece of work for us and health going forward, which probably incorporates some of the outcomes that the SDP would seek to deliver, has been our joint forward view, the 5-year forward view, which CCG and with the Council have jointly delivered. And I think that that's the piece of work which sets out our joint aspirations on health, which I don't think is a million miles away from what the SDP would seek to deliver, although it's not going into some of the bigger, issues about hospital arrangements and things like that. We have been sceptical about SDPs over the last couple of years, as you know, as a council, and that hasn't changed because it did feel very much like kind of a top-down. This is our idea. We've got the saving money, even though actually the plan that we're putting before you doesn't set out how we're going to deliver the savings that we believe that we need, and we know that our acute trusts, certainly at King's, are staggering from kind of crisis to financial crisis. So we're kind of observers of the SDP, but not really involved. And as I say, I think the more important bit of work is the forward view, where we can properly integrate services. And that, again, that's the bit of work, I suppose, where the nuts and bolts of delivery is being worked on by the two Richards subgroup.
Liam?
Thanks, Chair. I was actually storing up my questions for Councillor Livingston.
You can store away.